should we out anti-gay politicians who we know are themselves gay? If somebody doesn't support gay rights, but we happen to know that they are gay, and they're a politician, or we find out that they are gay, the question is, should we reveal their sexuality publicly? Should we embarrass them, effectively shame them for not supporting pro-gay rights policies? I think that a lot of people would say, certainly there are a lot of gay activists who would say yes. And this actually came up as an issue starting in the 1990s around the AIDS crisis. There was a lot of politicians who were not fully supportive of the fight against the disease, and people in the gay community felt this was really a battle of life or death. And so there were several cases where they revealed people, not just politicians actually, but in some cases celebrities, millionaires, who they felt, well, celebrities who were just running around being photographed with women. There was one case of a multimillionaire who they outed because he had a Playboy reputation and he wasn't giving, they felt, as much as he could to support the fight against AIDS. There's a number of arguments why you might think we should out somebody who is both anti-gay and gay. The first is just a matter of hypocrisy. That to be anti-gay and gay is seen as deeply dishonest. Politicians should be honest. This is a case where they are claiming to be one thing and not being that. They're claiming one thing and they are another. Some people actually defend it on the grounds that it is good for the person themselves. That being in the closet is a horrible thing to be, and the case is sometimes made that they're actually doing these public figures a favor by outing them. There's a third argument, which is that the closet itself is an institution that is damaging to gays and to gays' identity, and that for a public figure to be in the closet is to perpetuate this thing, the closet, that really needs to be torn down. There's a lot of people who feel like it needs to be no longer shameful to be gay. And the only way that will happen is if public figures are seen to be gay. And so they shouldn't, in a sense, have the right to be closeted. I think that these arguments have a lot of merit. I think when it comes to politicians, the one that people focus on the most is the hypocrisy argument. That this is just lying to people in a destructive way. So I'm sympathetic to the reasons people want to see anti-gay politicians outed. I think any supporter of gay rights simply wants to see the enemies of gay rights defeated. And outing is a way to do that. If we show that some of their supporters are themselves gay, that hurts them. And if you believe that gay rights are a matter of fundamental human rights, which many people do, then you want to see your cause succeed by whatever means necessary. Ultimately, I'm not convinced by the case for outing. I actually don't believe that politicians should be outed. I think it is possible to draw a distinction between politicians who support anti-gay policies or vote for anti-gay policies in Congress or in Parliament or wherever, versus those politicians or preachers, in some cases public figures, who are actually out there attacking gays. And I think in the case of people who are, when you see these preachers, there was very recently an anti-gay preacher who preaches these sermons about the immorality of homosexuality, and he's revealed to be gay. I think that in those cases, the case against outing is a little less clear-cut. These are people who are, in a sense, making personal attacks. I think with politicians, however, there are a number of factors to consider. First of all, giving politicians a right to privacy, I think, is one of the ways we ensure that people become politicians. They enter public life. I think that if people feel that anything in their life is going to be fair game, it's going to discourage them from entering public life. Now, advocates of outing would say, well, this isn't just anything. This is something very specific, a very specific case of hypocrisy. And I think that is true, and I think that it is... I think what they would say is it's also revealing of character. I think it is true, although I think with politicians that's more complicated. I think that being in the closet is not the same as just being a liar. And it's important to remember what politicians do. We don't live in a country where they simply impose their will on the people. Politicians argue, debate, vote through a democratic process. And if gay rights activists want to see the cause of gay rights promoted, I think they have to win in that democratic arena. Politicians who just do that are not making personal attacks. And in many cases, I think it's important to remember they may support, honestly, the policies that they're voting for. It may simply not be a way of covering up their gayness. There were cases where senators opposed increased federal funding for AIDS, and so this is one particular case I'm thinking of, Senator Mark Hatfield, I think, of Oregon, opposed an increase in funding to gay rights and opposed federal funding for an exhibit of this photographer Robert Mapplethorpe, who does this explicitly gay photography, and he didn't think that the National Endowment for the Arts should fund that. And so he was outed. Gay rights activists said he doesn't have the right to take those views if he is himself secretly gay. Well, I think you could be gay and still oppose arts funding for explicitly gay art. I mean, lots of straight people oppose arts funding for explicitly straight art. I also think you could have a view about where funding should come from for AIDS. That doesn't necessarily mean the federal government should be throwing more money in or whatever. And I think that if we say outing is okay, I think that we hamper, I think, we don't have a good rule for when outing is okay. And we hamper politicians' ability to take stands on issues where they may simply have genuine conscientious differences with gay activists. And so I think that there's a kind of slippery slope. Well, so what counts as a legitimate policy difference and what counts as being anti-gay? I don't think we are going to know that in advance, and I think that there's going to be disagreements, and to take it, I mean, to do this sort of moral vigilanteism forecloses those kinds of legitimate disagreements.